if you think about this question, what is the best slideshow that you've ever seen? And I can tell you that most people usually answer, Brad, I've never seen a good slideshow, right? Usually slideshows are, the slides got a whole paragraph of text on it, which, you know what, I can read just as good as you. So, and then what happens when people have that much text on their slides? Half the time they end up reading right from the slide. And then you're like, well, what am I here for? If all you're going to do is read from the slides, send me the slideshow and I can do it myself, right? So if you think about the best slideshows you've ever sat through, there's probably very few or maybe none at all. Okay. I can think of a couple. I can definitely think of one that when I went to a PD conference in Washington, D.C. one time, one of the keynote speakers was a guy named Robert Ballard. And if you don't know who he is, he's the guy who discovered the Titanic. Okay, the wreck of the Titanic. And and his whole slideshow was just a series of pictures. And then he explained the picture. So when you think of slide and show, you got to think of it as a broken word like that. So you got some slides and it's a show, but the show part is you. The slides just support what you're going to say. So again, if I'm talking about volcanoes or the wreck of the Titanic, or I don't know, some chemical equation reaction, you could have that up on your slide, but you're the show, right? If you have a bunch of things that you want to say, those go in your speaker notes. They don't go on the slide. Okay. So if we look at, as we go through this slideshow, now this is a video, and I'm not going to make you watch a video, but I'm just going to advance it here a little bit. Let me go back here. And I'll just stop it there. And I know it may not be very, can I go full screen here? Yeah, it's not very big, but the slideshows, look at the slideshow behind him. How much text do you see on that slide? Zero, no text. Why? He's using that image to make a point, and he is talking. He's the show, right? So when we do these slideshows, that's what I want you to think about. I could show you this video. If you're not familiar with Ken Robinson, he doesn't even use slides. He is such an entertainer. He's passed away now, but he could just run, do a 20-minute talk, a TED talk, and he doesn't even need slides. So again, the point being is that on your slide, you should have a minimal amount of text and use a picture. Okay. So that's okay. That's all right. I can live with that. What is going on here? Let me just go. Okay, I just want to show you. I can't really show you this. You can watch this in the slideshow yourself. But if any of you watch Ted Lasso on Apple, this is the guy who they call him Coach, and he is showing a slideshow here about football, soccer. And again, the point being in this video is there are no text on the slides. There's images, there's things going on the slide, and he's talking about it. So if we go back to slideshow, let me just get past that slide. Here we go. Okay, so some things from a guy named Gar Reynolds, who wrote a book called Presentation Zen. He's one of the guys who is like know it all about presentations. He gives us some things to think about. Think about billboards. When you drive by Bowdoin heading to Calgary and there's all those billboards, are they just all full of text? And you got to stop and read the whole thing? No, there's a picture with a little bit of text, right? And so your slides are kind of similar idea. A picture with a little bit, or in some instances, not even any text, okay? We want to use simple colors, right? And not only with colors, but we also want to use color contrast. So like a light color on a dark color, and vice versa. Okay, so we want to use simple colors. We want to use good fonts. Okay, fonts that are easily read, but also be mindful of your audience. If you're doing a slideshow for your grade 1 class, you need to use a slide that's easy for them to read. This slide right here, this text that I've got here, for younger kids would be very difficult for some of them to read. Like, what is this letter? We don't draw G's like this, or we don't write G's like that, right? So, oops. Hold on for a second. Gosh darn it. There we go. And so, well, we need to think about that. The other thing, one of the things we need to do is think about a layout. So we know about layouts. We know about themes already. Plus, in Google, if you can't find a theme you like, you can literally in your search engine type in slideshow templates. And if you do that, it will come up with some very, very cool ones that you could use in with Google. Now, when I've done that in the past, a lot of them are for PowerPoints, and that's okay because you can bring in, remember, you can bring in a PowerPoint into your drive and convert it to a Google slideshow. So there's lots of interesting layouts and slideshow templates that you can use out there in the world. Okay. Again, use color and style and size to emphasize important things on your slides, right? Repetition, alignment, proximity. So think of anytime you've ever had to navigate your way through a website that has multiple pages and things like that. Once you start clicking, and I'll just use it down here in the corner, once you start clicking a button down here that makes you go from one thing to another, you can't take that button and then just keep moving it around the screen because the user gets used to things being in one place where they can click through. So when we think about titles and things like that on our slides, we want to keep them in relatively the same place, same size, centered, off to the right, off to the left, that kind of stuff. So we want to create that sort of connection that the user then understands and kind of figures out what's going on here. Okay. And then the other thing we want to do is we want to use high quality images. So what I mean by that is when we're doing a Google search for an image, and I'll just type in, dogs. Okay. Right. We can do an image search by clicking images right here. Okay. But what I want you to do is I'd like you to go to tools, and then you can see when I click that, it brings up these little sub menus here. And I usually always change or choose the word large, okay? Because you know what happens when you take a small image and you try to make it bigger, it makes it all fuzzy and pixelated, right? So it's always better to start off with, large images than it is to start off with small images. Now, of course, there are instances where we want to use small images, and that's fine, but okay. And then, of course, you can choose your color. You can choose the type of image. Okay. And then the other thing is I would like pictures of whatever it is that I'm looking for. And you know what? Depending on what you're looking for, but within a time frame, right? Sometimes you're looking for things and like, oh man, that was from like 1989. That it's not relevant anymore. So if you need to search for things that are more recent or more relevant, you can also do a time search. And then the other thing that you can do here is you can search for images that are available either free or to buy. Okay. The other thing here, so that you've got two things here. I don't know if you can see those. Can I make those bigger? There we go. Right. Is we've got Creative Commons licenses and commercial. So basically there's things that you have to pay for and there's things that you don't have to pay for. Okay. Creative Commons, if you're not familiar with Creative Commons, what it does is it's people who apply Creative Commons licenses to their intellectual property, in this case, pictures, what they'll do is they'll give you a set of terms or conditions that you can use their images or whatever it is that you can use anything under Creative Commons that they've given you permission to use. So some people will say, you know what, go ahead and use my picture of this little pug in any way you want. I don't care how you use it. Okay. Sometimes they'll tell you, go ahead, you can use this image, and you can use it any way you want, but you cannot resell it, right? So with Creative Commons, they can give you permission to use things and with some circumstances around it. Now, the only sort of negative thing that I find with Creative Commons is if you click Creative Commons, what happens is it decreases the amount of images that are available. Okay, so again, when we're thinking about digital citizenship and digital literacy and plagiarism and copyright and all of those kinds of things, sometimes you might want to use Creative Commons images. Of course, the best way to circumvent all the rules about images is when you can use your own images because you own them. You can do whatever you want with them, right? So again, just depending on what it is you're using. So there's different ways to use images on our slides when we need to. Okay. All right. So let me just go back to slideshow mode here. So it's a little bit bigger. So how many images should you use? Right. Again, we're very used to seeing, image here and it 3 or 4 images often on a slide, or sometimes we'll have text on one half of the slide and a picture on the other half of the slide. Again, not the best use. And I'll show you why here. Okay. So we've all seen this, right? There's a slide that, somebody's presenting. Well, this is all about Martin Luther King. And like, it's just nuts. I mean, that's just overwhelmingly too much text. And it's even worse if I were to turn my back to you all and start reading it right from the slide, right? So instead of doing that, take that text. If this is the important text that you want on your slide and you want to talk about it, all of this text should go into your speaker's notes. And then we could do this. And even this, I don't know, to me, that is way too busy. Okay, there's just too much stuff on there. But how about this slide instead? Or that one. And again, going back to all that text, I could have all that text in my speaker's notes at the bottom of this slide. Right? There's all the text that I want that was in that on that slide that I showed you. So you can have the image and have the speaker's notes. Now, as we talk about speaker's notes, how do you get those? Okay. Well, if you want to kind of roam around and talk and move around the classroom, then when you go file and you go print preview, what you can do here is it'll ask you what do you want to see? And you could go, you know what? I want to see my slides with the speaker notes. So if you do that, of course, why would it do it for me today? What will happen? I don't know. What will happen is it should show you a preview. Of course, it's not for whatever reason today. And then you want to choose slide with notes. And then when you print it out, part of your print, oh, there it comes. Here we go. Let me go with that Martin Luther King slide and show you what I'm talking about. Right. So then I have this slide, and then I have all of the text that I want to talk about. You can print that out and have it in your hand and use that instead of having all the text on the actual slide. Okay. So if I go back here again, way better way to, again, more powerful. It's way more powerful than that, right? We've got this whole image there, and it makes you wonder, like, what's this guy doing? The guy with the glasses, what's this guy, look, he's kind of looking sideways. What's going on? So it makes the viewer take in that image. And we all know that images are powerful, right? So now we have some rules around how many slides should a slideshow have. I've completely broken that rule with this slideshow. So I have, I think, 62 slides in this slideshow. Okay. So after about 10-ish slides, then you should have an activity. So if you're going to go 60, like I've gone, about every 10 slides, you should have your audience do something, your students do something, talk about something, turn to a partner. What do you see in this picture? There's my activity. What do you think the guy with glasses is thinking about right now? Or, have students engage with the slide. Okay. So of course, if you want to have a big impact, then use big images, right? There's the image of JFK just before, unfortunately, he was assassinated, right? What's going on here? You could have a huge conversation around that, right? The lunar landing back in the late 60s, early 70s, right? This one from Times Square after the end of World War II, right? I think this is a Life magazine picture, or Time for sure. Okay, this one's more modern. There's some Ukrainian soldiers carrying one of their fallen comrades, at a funeral, right? This fell again from the Ukrainian war. Talk about nationalism, talk about, social studies things. There's lots of things that you could use this image for and talk about and have students engage with it, right? About pride in your country, all kinds of different things that you could do. And again, very powerful pictures rather than a whole bunch of text, right? Even just this one, what's going on here? What kind of classroom is this? All of those kinds of things. Okay. What's this guy doing? Right? What's he praying about? What's going on in his life? Right? Big, powerful, impactful images really help your slideshow. Okay. And again, after about 10 slides, good to have an activity. Okay. So here are the rules, and these are things that you should really be writing down right now if you're not, and because these are going to be some test and quiz questions that you're going to have to know this stuff. Okay. So for starters, no transitions. We talked about that. Okay. So I don't want to see transitions. I don't want to see animations. Because think of that, your slideshow and the other 79 students that I have to mark your slideshows, and that goes on. That makes me crazy. That just drives me to drink, basically. Okay, so same idea. Animations and sound. Okay, if you have sounds, you can do that. I can kind of budge on that one a little bit, but no transitions, no animations. If you need sound, you can knock yourself out on that one. Okay, so there's also this 20 and 7 type rule that we will talk about in when we do our brain lesson plans. So the 20 and the 7 is kind of like a ratio, right? It's kind of like your car warranty, 100,000 miles or 5 years, whichever comes first. Well, it's the same idea with the 27 rule, is 20 minutes or 7 new things that you're introducing to the student's brain, right? And so again, brain research shows this, is that most people can focus for about 20 minutes. And from, again, the research is most people can remember about 7 things. And if you think about phone numbers, credit cards, and some other things like that, they're divided into chunks of numbers because they do that so that people can remember them. Okay, so the 10, 20, 30 rule. Okay, so this is a rule that in this slideshow, I broke the first part and probably the time limit too. But so the 10, 20, 30 rule goes like this: no more than 10 slides. Okay, if you need to break the rule, then on slide number 11, you should have an activity. And then you could have 10 more slides and then an activity if you have to have that many slides. But as a general rule, 10 slides is what the experts say that you should have in a slideshow. And if you can't get your point across, then, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so that's what we're shooting for. No longer than 20 minutes. If we go back to that slide with Ken Robinson on, which is a video of him doing a TED Talk, even the most important people that go to TED Talks and they're like the headliner or the keynote speaker, guess what? They get 20 minutes. No more. I don't care if you're Ken Robinson, the King of England, or whoever important person you are, you get 20 minutes out of TED Talk, and that's it. So again, if you can't get your point across in 20 minutes, then you need to sort of think of how you might want to juggle that so you can. Okay. And then the last one is, and this is one that helps us with that text, is that the minimum size font should be 30 point. Okay. And that helps us with another rule. So again, I'm just going to go back. This is the 10, 20, 30 rule. So no more than 10 slides, no more than 20 minutes, and a 30-point font minimum. Okay. Again, can you play around with those numbers? Absolutely. But again, as a general guideline or rule, that's kind of what we're shooting for. Okay. And so that's what we've got there. Now, when we look at those time limits, here at the 20-minute time frame, again, that is the maximum amount of time that the frontal lobe of your brain can drink in or absorb new information. At that point, it's literally like, I don't have a glass here, but it's like a glass. You can fill it right to the top, 20 minutes at the top. Once you keep going, it spills out and it's not retained. Okay. So, and then we'll revisit this chart when we do lesson planning. But again, here, that 20 minutes decreases as the kids get younger. So, and again, as a general guideline, I have rejigged this a little bit from Eric Jensen's original chart. But this is about what you should go. So when we're talking about lesson planning or slideshows or things like that, if you're teaching grade 1 kids, they've got an attention span of about 8 minutes max before you should either have them do something or, you switch gears. And then you can read as well as I can. Here are the time guidelines. Okay. So I just want you to kind of keep that in mind when you're planning things, activities and things that you want to do in your, or a lesson that you're doing in your classroom, that there is solid research about how much people's brains can take in at one time. Okay. So again, and I have this slide in there because we've gone through 10 slides already. So, all right, now there's a bullet rule as well. Okay, so we've got lots of guidelines and rules here. So here's the bullet rule: is if you're going to have bullets on a slide, you can have three bullets maximum, and for each bullet, and again, remember we got a 30-point font. For each bullet, you're allowed to only have 5 words. Okay, so if you have to have text on your slide and you insist for whatever reason you want to have text on your slides, that's the rule. So no more than 3 bullets and no more than 5 words per bullet. And again, if you're using a 30-point font, that's probably about the max you can fit anyways. Okay, so again, and what I call that is the 3x5 rule. Okay, so again, no more than 3 bullets, no more than 5 words per bullet. Okay, this is a slideshow. If you've got, when you access, this is a guy doing a comedy routine talking about slides and slideshows. It's really quite funny, but we don't have time for it today. Okay, all right, maybe the last rule. What about fonts? Okay, we know that there are probably thousands of fonts that we could choose from. So again, depending on your audience, we want to make sure that we're not using any funky fonts that your audience can't read. And also think about, classrooms are a little bit different, but if you were in a larger space, you need to make sure that you're using fonts that are easily read. Okay, so if you're going to use text on a slide, you need to think about what fonts, even if you just look at this list of fonts, which ones are easiest to read. Okay, so again, we need to be mindful of that. Okay, here are friendly fonts for dyslexia. And again, whether this is a slideshow or it's a Google Doc that your kids have to read, it's an assignment, these are nice fonts for dyslexia, or the dyslexia friendly. Also, there are specific fonts that are actually for dyslexia themselves. Okay, so again, you can see all the slides on there, or all the text on this slide are all pretty boring, easy to read fonts. But again, that helps all of your viewers, your readers, your students, right? All right, what about colors? We talked a little bit about colors already. So dark on light, light on dark is basically the contrast. And of course, on any given slide, let me just get out of here for a sec. You have a color palette, right? So whether it's text or whatever it is, when we go to the color palette, there's our colors. Now, the thing that I want you to remember about color palettes is this. So all of these are kind of custom colors here. So let's just ignore those for now. But if you go with the basic colors that you get on any given slide, every color in this row, or whatever row you pick, this row right here, those are all what they call complementary colors. And those colors all work or play nice with one another. So if you're going to use multiple colors on a slide, then think about complementary colors. And then the same goes for each column. Let's use the orange one here for an example. All of these different shades of orange are all complementary to one another as well. So whether you're going horizontally or vertically, those are all complementary colors. Later on, when we do some other projects in the class, I'll show you how to add custom colors and pick complementary colors that work really nicely with one another. Okay, but for now, there's our 2 rules: light on dark, dark on light. What rule number 1? Number 2 is use complementary colors. So again, if I go into the slideshow mode here, the thing the trap that we fall into is that on our computer screen, this looks terrific. Okay, but you get into a classroom where maybe you don't have a television, but you've got a projector on the ceiling that's projecting onto a screen. Depending on the distance between the projector and the screen, those colors start to fade. And if you're not using bold, contrasty colors, it's really hard for your viewers to see what's on that slide. So again, just think of those 2 rules and you'll be safe. Okay, so we talked about complementary colors already. We talked about the palette. Okay, right? This is just an image of different colors that go together, and these don't all appeal to us, right? I mean, there's thousands of combinations that we could do, right? And some of these don't appeal. I really stay away from dark colors. Okay. I'm more of, this kind of a color scheme kind of guy. I like these lighter colors. I don't really like the dark colors. And that's just personal preference. It's not right or wrong. Okay. So, and again, I'll show you how to find complementary colors and work with them later on in the term. Okay. All right. Stop. Okay. What about contrast? I mean, you could read that pretty well, but that pink is just brutal on the eyes, right? Right. So, I mean, that's way better than that. So, right, even black brown. So for black backgrounds work great, but they don't work great if I have to print my speaker's notes, because you are going to have a slide that is used a ton of toner or a ton of ink. And, you've all done this. Your page is going to be soggy by the time you finish printing it out on an inkjet printer. And of course, we all know that toner ink is expensive. So if you're going to print it out, do not use colored backgrounds. Okay. Now I think black is probably the easiest on the eyes. But again, if you're printing, do not use colored backgrounds. Okay. Okay. Again, color everybody loves lime greenish color, but it's so hard on your eyes, right? So no, we don't want that color. No, right? No, right? Okay. Now about tools. So we talked a little bit about some of the tools that you could use. Of course, this is just one example of a slideshow advancer or slideshow clicker, okay, that you can buy. This kind of a clicker is probably worth about 25 bucks now. So you could buy that on Amazon or Best Buy for about 20, 25 bucks, okay? And it'll do everything you want, okay? And it just depends on what you want to do and how often you present. So you can invest how much ever money you want, or your school can buy you one or whatever. The other tool that I think is important to have is making sure that you have a speaker system or a sound system that is good, right? That your audience, your kids, your students can hear. Also, if you are a teacher like I have been in the past, where I am moving from class to class instead of my students coming to me, you don't know what tech is in every room, right? So having your own speaker to plug in is valuable, right? And I mean, there's a million different Bluetooth and all kinds of different speakers that you can buy now. I actually have a little Beats pill, just like the pink one in there. So I bought one of these. So, and it's really good and it fits in your backpack. It's super easy to use. Okay. So those are some of the tools of the trade that you can use, right? And then the last kind of thing is don't forget to check your spelling, right? There's nothing that is more sort of, I don't know, unprofessional than not having correct spelling on your slides, especially if you expect your students to have correct spelling in their stuff like that. Now, I'm not saying that we don't make typos and things like that all the time, but try to be as diligent about spelling and that kind of stuff as you can.